thing you have to take care of is your own heart, your own spirit, your own mind before God. And if you compromise that, if you become fragmented, and this often happens to men because we focus so much on the family or marriage, that we will compromise our own integrity. We will soft sell our values and our design in an effort to make peace and be good. And when you do that, you've not only failed to heal your marriage, because you can't bastardize yourself in order to respond to whatever current criticism or frustration is happening with your spouse. You can't. You can't do that. So you not only fail to fix your marriage, you give her less of a man to love.
What is up, my friend? You are so important. Your role matters. Fatherhood matters. The way you show up as a dad has major impact, not only on the day-to-day life of you and your family, but on the world, on your community, and will last beyond your lifetime. My conversation today is with David McDonald, and it is incredible. This man has so much for you and I. 3 nuggets that stuck out to me from the conversation were: 1, what are you showing your family is normal? The way that you lead in your home, that's what they're going to think is normal. 2, invite your family into things. Don't lead like a zealous tyrant. And 3, if you love, you will suffer. Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, where I interview incredible fathers gaining wisdom from their stories for you and I to grow in our own fatherhood craft and journey. I'm your guide, Ned Shout, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 11 to 18, and husband to my rad wife, Sarah, working on our 20th year of marriage. So, yep, I'm in this with you. I am in the thick of it, the messiness of it all. I am working daily to rebel against those low expectations for fatherhood. And I want to create a world where fathers know who they are and show up for their families. You and I have the greatest opportunity to impact our world in the way that we embrace our fatherhood role. This episode is brought to you by The Adventure of Fatherhood, helping men discover their powerful fatherhood role and build their fatherhood skills. The role of fathers to serve, guide, provide, protect, and of course, find joy and have fun in the messiness. Today's guest is my friend, David McDonald. I learned so much from this conversation. I've learned so much from him and the work that he's doing, and continue to pursue him so that I can learn and gain knowledge. And you will see after this conversation what I'm talking about. Enjoy meeting Dave McDonald. Good to see you. How you feeling today?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Just finished a workout and had a busy day, and I feel good.
Love it. Love it. I sound more manly today. I sound kind of like you, but mine is because I got choked so much last night at jiu-jitsu that my throat literally is just on fire today.
Just raw.
Yeah, raw, but it's nice. I sound like more of a man, but if this is your first time listening, I don't always sound this deep. So David, you and I were connected recently through one of my greatest friends and mentors, Pastor Nathan Oates. And when I asked him, like, who's a great father, who's a guy out there like leading, charging, he brought up your name. Now, this is like one of the best compliments one can get. So when asked the question, hey, who's a great father, who's somebody who's like leading and charging, your name came to his head. Why do you think that is?
Oh man, I have so much respect and admiration for Nathan. So I mean, he's certainly somebody that I would recommend to everybody else. He's amazing. I think he and I share a couple of qualities that probably is what generates all that resonance. You know, like he's somebody that doesn't shy away from hard things. You know, I think when you see that the challenges ahead of you, that shouldn't deter you. That should spur you on. When you feel resistance, that shouldn't make you go away. That should make you grow strong. And when you fail and you don't quite have what it takes to get through life's current challenges or stresses or pressures, the answer is not to give up or get clever and find a workaround. The answer is to get bigger, get bolder, get stronger. When you fail, keep training spiritually, keep training mentally. You just got to keep doing it. And maybe I learned that because when I was in high school, I failed my driver's test like 4 times. It was so humiliating. I remember the first time I got through the driver's test, I was like, that was really easy. That went really well. And we get back to the DMV place, and the driving evaluator, he goes, "Hey," he goes, "You failed with one of the worst scores I've ever seen, but you're a great driver." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, you drive like a normal person. The problem is you can't drive like that on your exam." So I had like, this was in British Columbia, so I think you were allowed like 35 demerits.
Mm.
You know, you get 5 demerits for this or 10 demerits for that. I had 237 demerits.
Oh
Like,
my
I
gosh.
wasn't even close. Like, I was the best failure ever. And so then, I went back and see the same kind of thing as they're kind about my driving, but I just didn't succeed.
Hmm.
And so I had to pay all that money, take all those stupid tests, suffer the shame and humiliation of all my friends, and then finally do it right. And it's not like I'm Mario Andretti now or the world's best driver or anything like that. I go, that's just a really simple example that for me, I'm always going to have to do everything wrong 20 times. Like
Hmm.
I'm life stupid that way. And I realized that if that's how I am, if I'm that dough-headed, if I'm such a dummy that I'm going to fail a bunch before I ever succeed, then I need the muscles to fail, and I need the
Hmm.
fortitude to keep trying when I fail, because success for me never happens easily. Results are never immediate, and so I think Nathan and I share this
Hmm.
quality that says you got to do hard things. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't want to, but you got to. And we have other shared qualities. We love adventure, and we love our kids, and we love Jesus, and are strong in our faith, and we love to think, and we love to dream. But I think probably that love for the near impossible is probably what unites us most.
Ooh, I love it. The love for the near impossible. Man, that's good. All right, there's so much I want to come back to and ask you about, but I'm going to start with a few rapid fire questions. How old do you find yourself today?
I'm 47.
47. How many years you been married?
26.
Yeah, boy. Woo.
Oh,
Dude, leading. That's what's up. I'm about to hit my 20th. And
oh,
when I meet, yeah, dude, it's killer. But when I meet men who are ahead of the game like that, it's such an inspiration. I know how flippin' hard it is. And to know it's like, dude, this homie made it to 26. I mean, it just goes to show like everything you just said
oh,
is not BS, right? Right.
yeah.
And nothing, I know stuff happens. So it's no shame on anybody who has had to get divorced or something, but there's just a different level of authority when you said everything in the first 4 minutes about do hard things. And then I asked the question about marriage. And if you're like, yeah, I've been married 2 years, then you're like, oh, you know what I mean? And that stuff happens, but it's not to shame them. It's to put you up on a pedestal a little bit to say thank you. Like what you're saying is true in your marriage, because yeah, fitness is fun to talk about, nutrition is fun, parenting is fun, but marriage is one of the hardest things we will ever do. And for you to say all that and say 26 years, thank you.
Well, thanks, man. That's fine. Yeah.
So let me ask this then. What if you were to share with the dude who's coming up on his 20th, who's like, man, I love my wife, but this last year we fought a lot, blah, blah, blah. What would be something you'd speak into their life on marriage?
Well, it's counterintuitive, and at the risk of inviting all sorts of criticism and fury, I'll go
Yeah.
ahead and say, here's the thing: your marriage is not the most important thing about you, and
Mm,
neither is father, and
mm,
neither is church. The thing that you have to attend to first is your own spirit before the Father. And the truth is, when we prioritize all of these other things to the level of ultimate significance, what we
mm,
lose is that which is uniquely and only ours to shepherd. Because the truth is, your kids,
mm,
while they're your responsibility, You can't control them. You can't make decisions for them. The truth is, your spouse, while you love her and sacrifice for her and would be willing to die for her, you can't control what she does or how she behaves, how she treats you, or whether or not she responds to any of the ways in which you're doing things. And there's all
No,
kinds of
you can't.
circumstances in which two godly, loving people nevertheless hit obstacles that they cannot move past. So in the midst of marriage, whether it's in the good times or the bad times, whether it's in the times of great fecundity or a real desert, I mean, the thing you have to take care of is your own heart, your own spirit, your own mind before God. And if you compromise that, if you become fragmented, and this often happens to men, I mean women too, but I've never been a woman, so can't really speak with any authority on that. But it often happens to men that because we focus so much on the family or marriage or whatever all these things are, that we will compromise our own integrity, and we will soft sell our values and our design in an effort to make peace and be good. And when you do that, you've not only failed to heal your marriage, because you can't bastardize yourself in order to, respond to whatever current criticism or frustration is happening with your spouse. You can't. You can't do that. So you not only fail to fix your marriage, you give her less of a man to love. So what you got to do is start with you. It's the old analogy of the airplane oxygen mask. If you don't get the oxygen, you can't look after anybody else. And I don't mean to suggest that marriage is selfish and it's always you before her. That's not what I'm saying at all, man. Life is sacrifice, and it's sacrifice for the people you love. The way of Jesus is the way of the cross. It's the way of suffering. You will suffer if you love. But what I'm saying is your capacity to suffer and suffer well, to not be malformed or to retard your spiritual development, is directly related to your own tether to God. And if you don't pay attention to it, man, you're screwing up everything. All your kids are going to see is a weak dad twisting himself in knots trying to make an angry woman happy. Doesn't work.
Bro. Well, this has been a great podcast. We can go now because you gave us such good things to think about. As you shared that, what I was thinking about is how it seems as though a lot of men, I could fall into this myself, try to control everything around me almost as an escape to take control of the things I should be taking control of myself, disciplining my spirit, my body, my mouth, what I watch, what I eat, blah, blah, blah. So I try to control my wife. I try to control my kids. I try to control my business. I try to control these things around me instead of just being responsible and a good steward, right? Like an open hand with them. And so if I take control of myself, because I have more control over myself than I think a lot of us give credit, and take less control of those around me, just be responsible with them. I think that your answer, right? That is where more peace and joy, right? Not that peace and joy doesn't mean there's not struggle and pain. And I think that's what we miss out on. And I love how you said, if you choose to love, there will be struggle. And I think because of Hallmark and whatever else, we think that love is supposed to be like, oh my gosh, my marriage is supposed to be just like a freaking movie all the time. And it's just not the case. Okay. How many kiddos do you have and what are their ages?
My son is 20 and my daughter is 17. My son's in his third year of college studying to be a civil engineer, and my daughter's graduating high school this year, and she's going to go to Michigan State to be a teacher. And both my kids are power lifters. They're both athletes. They used to be great CrossFitters. Now my daughter still CrossFits a lot. But it's just a hobby for her. And my son got way turned off CrossFit. He hates it. But they're both wickedly strong, like insanely strong, with almost no body fat on him. Like my son is only like 185 or 190 pounds, but he's deadlifting 600 pounds and he's coming up on like 465 bench press. And like, you're like,
oh
what?
My gosh.
Like, insane. So I'm really proud of them because that's fitness is always a thing that we've done together. It was like, was just kind of a way to get away from the TV and video games, and not have to do dumb kid stuff. Like there's only so much Lego you can play before you want to stab yourself. So we wanted to be active and have kind of adventuring sort of lifestyle and travel and do stuff. And having able-bodied kids that would. I mean, one of the prayers I used to always pray for my kids and still do is that God would entrust to them the joy of their body. And I started praying at first for my daughter, because there's so many girl body issues, and I just thought, Lord, give her the joy of her body. And it's a prayer I heard from Leonard Cohen, actually the singer songwriter. But that I thought that's such a great ambition. So I feel really happy and thankful and grateful to God for the way my kids are just thriving, bodily. And I don't think I can take any credit for that. And it's not like they've got everything in life figured out and they're perfect and everybody's kids should be like them. I'm just proud. I just think I feel really happy. They give me a lot of joy, and I feel very fortunate to be their dad. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Love it. And then where do you guys reside as a family? Where do you guys do life?
Well, now that my son's off to college, he's just outside of Chicago at Olivet and Nazarene, and then our family lives in a small town about an hour outside of Detroit in Jackson, Michigan. Yeah, we're originally from. I'm from Vancouver, and so we joke that we're Michiganeries.
Love it. Nice. And then what do you do to feed the family and provide value out in the world?
Yeah, I was a pastor for almost 30 years and a seminary professor, and now I run a retreat center for creative pastors called the Fossores Chapter House. And it is amazing, man. It is the most rewarding, most joyful work I've ever done. So we host retreats and residencies here for creative pastors. We've had just under 800 pastors since 2019 when we opened.
Wow.
We host retreats probably 3 retreats a month. At least 1 or 2 that are open to the public, and then others where somebody will hire us out to provide for them. And it's awesome. It's amazing. It's amazing, amazing, amazing. I love it.
Yeah. That's killer. Yeah. Wow. Good work. When did you embrace fatherhood? So you got a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old. You've been through a lot of stages. You know, I hear a lot of men are like, it's like, oh, the moment my wife said she was pregnant, or when I first saw the baby, or, it wasn't until the kid walked, or it wasn't until the kid did their first deadlift in your situation. When did you embrace fatherhood?
Well, my son, from the moment that my son was born, he had my heart. It was a really cool experience. I was then sort of expecting that experience would recur with my daughter, and it didn't. Not at first. Now, my daughter and I are very, very close. I adore her, but our journey to closeness was different. And I think maybe part of it is, I don't know how you grow up in church or read the Bible and you hear all this stuff about dads and firstborn sons. I mean, we are preconditioned to love sons. Like we're brainwashed. We are on track to love our sons, So me being a guy and then, making a guy, that's so much guy, right? and so I had this natural affinity to him on the basis of gender, really, and all this biblical stuff, with my daughter, she's so funny. Like from the time that she was a baby, she just would crack me up. The things that she would do, I always thought were so clever and so mischievous. And she was kind of born with a twinkle in her eye and fire belly, So she's just she's funny and impish, and she'll rip your face off, and like she's amazing. So for her, I really fell in love with my daughter over those first couple of years in her infancy and then toddlerhood, and I just like she's like a little Tasmanian devil, and so for my son it was something mystical. For my daughter it was something sort of like romance, a father-daughter romance, where I just like this person is so cool. She's awesome.
That's great.
And so it's different, but I feel lucky in that for both kids.
That's good. Now, what would you say the role of the father is? And I've never quite asked the question this way, but say you had one opportunity to write your son a letter or something very short, and you weren't maybe going to be there to watch him be a father. What are the things that you're like, gosh, I would have to tell him? Like, obviously he saw you, father, but if you were to say, son, this is what matters with fatherhood and you have what it takes, what would you tell him the role of the father is?
Yeah. Well, I think the more I'm alive, now that I'm at level 47, eager to reach level 48, the longer I'm alive, the less likely I am to give points and propositions as advice. Instead, I
Mm-hmm.
would think the best thing to do is to pay attention to the Holy Spirit. Like attend to the sensitivities of God, because the Spirit will guide you, the Spirit will counsel you, and So I might say, if I was to give advice, I might say something like, the most important thing is to make sure you show up for the things that matter to your kid. But the truth is, sometimes life gets in the way of the things that matter to your kid. And so you gotta discern, well, is this a time where I quit my job because it's keeping me away from my kid? Or is
Mm-hmm.
this a time I teach my kid about the value of discipline, responsibility, and taking care of your family? Neither one of those is the right answer or the wrong answer. They both could be fine, but you're the one that's got to live with the consequences. And so you're the one that's got to have peace about whatever decision you make. That's why I love Ecclesiastes. There's a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones. There's a time to make
Yeah.
love, there's a time to make war. And you go, well, how is there ever a time to make war? How is that a good thing? How does the same God who says, thou shalt not kill, say, go out and make war? That involves killing. I mean, what's the contradiction? And the truth is, life is rarely black and white. You gotta pay attention to how the Spirit is leading you, and discern what the right thing is to do in this moment, in this circumstance. And I think what a father is, what a healthy father
Mm.
is a vision of mature masculinity. And you can look at a healthy dad and go, all right, that's one way that a man could look. That's good. Because we got lots of examples of the way men could look that are bad.
Yeah.
But there's not like, you got all kinds of amazing dads that aren't the same. So we need to
Yeah. Yeah.
prioritize amazement, not the sameness. And so, I'm grateful that I had a great dad, and I'm grateful that I have great brothers and great mentors in my life, that none of them look the same. And that's part of the beauty of it. That's part of the glory of mature masculinity, is it's not one size fits all. I mean, some are poets, some are warriors, some are fighters, some are thugs, some are musicians, some are dreamers, some are inventors.
Yeah, and in what you're saying too is like you could be all of those things over the course of the next year or the next 2 weeks, depending
Yeah.
on what your kid needs, depending on what the Spirit moves you to be. Like, I need you to be this peaceful lover right now, and I need you to show up as gangster right now.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to what you said at the very beginning when I asked about marriage. You said you got to you got to steward what you've been given, this body, this relationship with God, this life, right? I got to take care of Ned, got to take care of David. And then it led into right now, this conversation is around a good father. You said, I'll be there, right? Like, be there. If I was going to say advice, it's be there. But also sometimes you can't be there. Sometimes it's hard because it's not like we're saying they need disappointment, but that is life, right? Like, my kid will experience disappointment. So discernment, and the only way you can truly have discernment is if you are in tune with the Spirit. And man, I've really been loving First and Second Samuel, reading about King David. Homie went to God for everything, and like, I'm kind of blown away on this one story. He like finds out that all the wives and all his soldiers wives and kids are all stolen, and instead of like just rallying the troops and going and just like slaughtering these fools to get them back, he first goes to God and is like, yo, should we go pursue them? you know it's like Yeah, but he knew his place, right? He's like, yo, should we do this? And God says, yes, go do it. But the fact that that's how he's operating, like, I want to go inquire of the Lord of these things as
Yeah.
well. Now, that doesn't mean sit on my hands and sit around and wait for audible voice. It means inquire of the Lord and then discern and take action. And sometimes you'll be right and sometimes you'll be wrong, but the times you're wrong, still good because you're learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, dude, love it. Okay, before I go to my next question, any other thoughts on that before I keep moving?
Yeah. I mean, lots, but we go ahead and keep.
Okay, all right. I
Yeah.
love this question, and I love it for you because you were a pastor for so long. So, what was something that you were stuck in your ways on? Okay, over the last 30 years, you were stuck in your ways. You're like, it's definitely this. But then you had a son, and then you had a daughter, and then over time, things shift. Is there something you changed your mind on or shifted on over the last 30 years through being a father that
Oh,
changed your
yeah.
opinion about something?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I'm going to invite some hate here.
We love the hate.
Now, let me preface by saying, I'm conservative. If I got to pass any kind of test or fill out any sort of, rubric, like I'm always going to be on the conservative side of it. I
Yeah.
say that with full knowledge that I've got a lot of tattoos for a conservative, but whatever. But the Bible is not about sin. The Christian story is not about sin. The Christian life is
Mm.
not shaped by sin. The more you think about sin, the less healthy a human being you're going to be, and the less successful a Christian person you're going to be. The Bible is about life. It's the book of life written by
Mm-hmm.
the author. And if you frame the Bible as the instruction manual from the author of life about how life is best to be enjoyed, you are going to come to very different conclusions about your relationship with God, your place in this world, and the calling of the Spirit upon you than if you read the Bible as we got a big problem book, and the problem
Yeah.
is you, and everything is going to burn
Hmm.
up in a fire again. Like, those are radically different religions. And
Yes.
I grew up in the latter. I mean, and
Yeah.
it's not like there's no verses in the Bible about sin. But here's the thing, like the Bible is problematic. Go ahead, keyboard warriors, I invite your ire. There are as many verses in the Bible about really bad things as there are about really good things. And there are hateful verses in the Bible. There are judgmental and condemnatory verses in the Bible. And there's verses in the Bible that absolutely exude love and grace and welcome and acceptance. And if you want to make the case that God is violent and angry and vengeful, you can make that case with the Bible, airtight. But if you want to make the case that God is a loving father and that God
Mm.
abounds in mercy, you can make that case in the Bible,
Yeah.
airtight. So here's the thing. When you read the Bible, you are a way bigger factor in what's being read and how it's being interpreted than anything else. More than your education, more than your understanding. It's you. And the people that in their heart love judgment will find judgment in the scripture and use the Bible
Oh,
like a weapon. And the people that in their
yes.
heart are in love with God and in love with God's people, God's creation, God's future, God's promises, they will find in the Bible goodness and mercy. And so if you realize that in the Bible, I'm finding all this harsh stuff, how can Dave say this? I go, the reason you're finding it is because something inside of you is guiding you there, and it's not the Holy Spirit.
Mm.
So I go, man,
Powerful.
you gotta just wake up to the fact that, yeah, the Bible says all this nasty stuff. It really does. Shame on you if that's the stuff you focus on. That's on you, bro. And I learned this as a father because I realized, like, we got to talk about, whatever screw ups the kids might do. But I don't have to shame them for their screw ups.
Yes.
9 times out
Yes.
of 10, they already feel bad for their screw up. So
Yeah.
I gotta love them through their screw up. And it's not like no, whatever the biggest screw ups they've ever had are, they don't come anywhere close to compromising the love I have for my kids. Like, not even
Right.
close. And
Right.
maybe I'm a great dad. I don't know. I'm the only dad I've ever been. So there's just me comparing myself to me. So, but I go, if I, being evil, will nevertheless not give my child a wicked gift, nor turn my back to my child, how much more will my heavenly Father extend grace to me? Which is a bastardization of, if your kid asks
Yeah.
you for a piece of bread, are you going to give them a stone? But I go, like, that's just, I wouldn't do that to my kid. How could God do that to me? The
Yeah.
sins of my
If God is love, yeah, if he is love and he loves more than I could ever even imagine, how can
Yep.
my kid, I'm not throwing my kid outside. I might have to discipline
Yep.
my kid or cut my kid off from some things, unfortunately. But if they ever walk back through that door, no matter the day or time or whatever, they are in. I love them.
Yeah, it's just a real trip, And I'm outside of the church now. I'm very church positive. I love church. I work with churches all the time. I work with pastors all the time. I love church. I love church. But I don't currently work at a church. I work
Yeah.
for lots and lots and lots of churches, and so I'm around a lot more diverse people now. And what I've noticed is that since being out of the church, and I still attend church, but
Yeah.
I'm not at the church 70 hours a week like I once was. Okay.
Right.
I've noticed that people who are consumed with holiness are never considered good by people outside of the church. Now, other Christians from their same church will go, "Oh yeah, Bob is so good." And because Bob, he's thinking about holiness, he's thinking about sin reduction and behavior management. Can he pray more? Can he show up to more church events? Can he be nicer to? But you don't ever want Bob to meet your trans friend,
Right.
because Bob has to tell them why it's wrong. Bob has to. He has to, because he serves a holy God. God may be loved, but God is holy, holy, holy. So we better get right now to the thing that separates you from a holy God in this first conversation. So Bob is holy, but he's not good. And you can't ever tell Bob that. You can't ever help him see it, because Bob is so focused on his narrow understanding of the scripture. And I say that because I was Bob. I was Bob for so long.
What
And
shifted you out of being Bob while
yeah,
also
yeah,
continuing to love the church?
yeah. Well, my dad was a pastor, so we grew up in church. I never had the vision of a church as a pretty bride, you know. Jesus is the groom, the church is the bride, but we're all at the wedding, and we know the bride is ugly. Like, we can see her; she's all snaggletooth, and she got a lazy eye and a little bald patch, and she got she's like, you're like, oh, Jesus, like, great to see you. You sure? Like we know the bride is ugly. So that's never been a problem for me in my faith. The only people that have ever hurt me are Christians, but that's because the majority of people I've been around as a pastor were Christians.
Yeah.
If I was, a bartender at a gay nightclub, probably the most people that would hurt me would be people that were at the gay nightclub. That's just sort of it.
Yeah, people are
So
messy, and we want to act like it's not, but yeah,
yeah,
people are people.
yeah, and they in evangelical circles, I think the biggest problem that Christians have is because sin is so bad and we're not supposed to do it and we've been forgiven from sin. We just lie about the fact that we sin all the time. And so that's why I
Right.
love Martin saying, sin boldly. Just acknowledge the fact that you probably sinned 20 times today, and go ahead and itemize what the sins were, because most of them are in your heart rather than in your hands or out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, that was a crazy big answer, but kids, it's being a dad, and I just keep going. How could I ever feel like the most important thing today is to list all my kids' failings and remind them of it? Like, why would I ever do that? So why do I imagine that's what God wants to do, or that God wants me to do that?
Yeah, and I think that that's really important to lean into. as a father. I think fatherhood is the thing that can really reveal that to you, like a better understanding of our Heavenly Father. But I think I've even struggled or wrestled with this at times is like, if I live in this judgment world, sometimes I feel as though if my kid does something wrong or my wife does something to annoy me, uh, I I want them to know that I'm upset, right? So I feel like I'm supposed to be mad for a day, or So then, but what happens is then you withhold love from them, right? You could find yourself withholding love, and what you said originally was like, we're all going to make mistakes. I want to be a guide and be there for my kid. And a lot of times the mistake that was made already provides the punishment. Like I already feel bad when I messed up, right? And so
Yeah.
if my kid does something, why do I feel this responsibility? And it's if I think that God is this cruel judge, well, then now I have to step in to be this cruel judge for my kid. And I think that's when we default into like, being good, doing the right thing, not being authentic about our sin. And it's just such a, you're a slave to that. It's not freeing, but to when my son messes up and I'm like, oh, bro, I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry that happened. I get it. That's happened to me, or I've done this, or whatever, right? Whatever you can, share openly as a father. So much more freedom in that. That's a guide. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like, if I had to pick metaphors for where I think we get it most wrong, we tend to think in terms of chivalry and rightness and discipline.
Mm.
We tend to think of ourselves as knights, and that's kind of a fun way to think of yourself. When we were little boys, we all liked to play war. We all ran around with hockey sticks and whacked each other in the shins as our swords. I mean, like we like to think of ourselves as knights, but it's better to think of yourself as a gardener. Because a gardener doesn't go into the garden and hack down the tomato plants. He goes in and maybe there's a little trimming, but he's like, what nutrients do they need? Are they getting enough light? Do they have the support so that they can grow up in a healthy way? I'm taking care to make sure this thing grows. That's what I'm doing as a dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe there's some pruning that has to happen, and maybe there's all kinds of stuff that has to happen. But that's not what I'm most excited about. What I'm excited about is that the tomatoes grow on the vine.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're a knight, the thing that you're most excited about is killing the other guy.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
when you have this vision of yourself, this chivalrous vision of yourself, I'm protecting my family, I'm defending my family by attacking everyone who's a threat to them. But then if my family is a threat to my family, well, now I've got to attack my son when he lips off to his mom, or attack my wife when she, makes my kids anxious. I mean, so like, put the damn sword down, dude.
Yeah. Yes. It's good. Really good. All right. This podcast is Fatherhood Field Notes. You're already doing it, opening up your life, your field notes, sharing it with us. The mantra behind it is rebel and create. The idea with this is, as men, what's something you're fighting against? We just kind of talked about being a gardener, but what's something that you're rebelling against in our culture, in our world, in your home? It could be, cell phones at the dinner table, or it could be, toxic masculinity, whatever wording you want to use. And then what do you want to create out of that? So obviously we don't just want to tear something down, but we want to replace it with something beautiful and creative, etc. When you hear that, what's something you are currently rebelling against, and what do you hope to create from that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm rebelling against everything. Kurt Cobain is my patron saint. He wrote the 67th book of the Bible. But I mean, I'm a product of my time and place, and I really am rebelling against authority systems and structures, rules and regulations that overreach. I don't think any government ever has been good. It's just kind of a necessary evil. It's the best we got, and it's terrible. I mean, that's kind of my attitude about ecclesial structures, denominations. That's my attitude about civil government. That's my attitude about power structures. I mean, you got to have them, but don't fall in love with them. And periodically, you gotta grab them by the collar and say, "Hey, wake up!" Because you're killing people. robbing them of life, robbing them of dreams, robbing them of hope, robbing them of vision, robbing them. So the thing that I want to create is, insofar as possible, I want to cultivate life and life more abundant. I think that was Jesus' mission statement. I think that's the clear teaching of the scripture. I can certainly defend the idea that God is the author of life, and what God is making is, God makes things live. As Romans 4, he calls those things that are not as though they are, and he brings life to the dead. I love that. He calls things that aren't as though they are, like he makes the world by talking about it. That's what we do. We make things up by talking about it, by prophesying our way forward, by using our words and casting speech and dreaming. I mean, look at C.S. Lewis or J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien spoke a whole world into existence that radically redefined Christian manhood for the last 75 years by making something up. So creativity is the essence of godliness. It's how we emulate God when we have nothing else to do. And we can do whatever we wish. What will we do? We're going to make things up. We're going to make things up. We're going to create. That's the essence of the new creation. So what I want to do is I want to help people flourish so that life is pouring out of them, insofar as I'm capable. Just when they get around me, when they get around the chapter house, I want them to just feel like they go from dead to being a seed, to having buds, to blooming and producing fruit. I just want them to feel like somebody took the life plunger and jammed them in the neck with the needle of God, and they're alive. And systems and structures of power and government get in the way of that. So that's what pisses me off and makes me grumpy. And instead, holding out the promise of Jesus. That's what gives life. Yeah.
Wow, bro. So good. Kind of staying in a similar vein, one of the things that you and I connected on was around fitness and nutrition and spirituality. And since we have this time together, I would love to hear, because I know that the way that you operate and see the world, it flows from you as a father to your kids and as a father figure to those that you lead and love. 800 men through your program who are then leading their own congregations. Like that's work, that's legacy and impact, etc. And it's interesting because I'll share a story with you, and then you can jump in and give your opinion. So, we started this fitness program, and that's one of the reasons I reached out to you. And one of the most amazing testimonies we got in the first 60 days was from a guy who'd been a pastor for 20 years, and he's a little overweight as a pastor. And I've always kind of had a little bit of an issue with that, like somebody on stage talking about discipline and they're like 30% body fat. And something he shared was, he said, hey, this program has transformed me, because we do a prayer of gratitude before we step into the gym. And he said, I've never been grateful for my body. And this is helping me see that my body is a gift, and I'm grateful for it. And I think a lot of fathers, the way that we, as fathers, we set the tone in our home, whether we like it or not. And that's not just energy wise. It's also spirituality. It's also physical. It's the food we put in the fridge. We're setting up the habits for generations moving forward. And body and spirit. I would love for you to give your perspective on this, because I think it'll help fathers see the importance of taking responsibility, not only of their own body, but then being responsible for what they allow in their home, potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The choices that you make normalize good living. So if you've got a cupboard full of sugary snacks and empty calories, and what you're saying is, this is normal, this is good, even if you don't mean to say it. And so your kids are going to grow up eating, empty calories, thinking this is normal, this is good. They're going to struggle with energy and focus and fitness, thinking, oh, there's something wrong with me. And you go, no, there's nothing wrong with you. You just got all kinds of bad habits that you learned that you don't know. The problem is not you or your body. The problem is what's in your cupboard, but you don't know that because you weren't, you just weren't shown and you weren't taught. Yeah. But I don't think the solution is for dads to go home and open up the cupboards and go, tired of this crap. We're gonna eat healthy now and throw everything away,
Yeah.
which is often what happens with us. We kind of have a heavy revy, and we get this great insight, and we get zealous and make these sort of harsh changes. We become the drill sergeant of gladness, who come in
Yeah.
and make our family goose step to our new regime. No, I think the healthiest thing is to just talk about what you're doing with the people around you and say, I'm trying this now. I realize that I've made some bad choices over the kids. So you guys are probably going to start buying some healthier snacks, and we'll probably have some of the less, we'll probably have less of that unhealthy stuff that we so in there, and the kids will complain. Of course, I know it'll be weird, and then over time you just normalize these changes. And what's more important even than the new way of eating, or even than the new way of being, what's more important than that is normalizing the goodness of ongoing self-reflection, evaluation, and change. Let your kids see you change in healthy ways. Change is not like a light switch. You don't go from being a fat pastor to being a fit pastor in 10 seconds. You change everything about your life over time, constantly submitting to the transforming energy of the Holy Ghost, so that we are radically different in 5 years or in 10 years. And that difference has been wrought in us with peace and joy and grace, not with severity and discipline and harshness and judgment.
Wow.
Because they're not learning. When you come home and you're, the spiritual six-pack guy now, like, they don't
Yeah.
fall in love with fitness. They don't fall in love with nutrition. They fall out of love with their dad because you're a dick. So don't become a dick in your pursuit of God or sex or whatever. Like, that's the thing that's important. Show them lovingly and patiently that you've got some changes to make, and invite them into it if they choose. They know. Like, they know when you're happier and when you're healthier, because they see you. They go, look at the way my dad changed. I want to be like my dad, who changes.
Yes. So, okay. I think a lot of us, like you said, the zealous dad, right? We come in and we do the 75 hard, or we sign up for this 90-day program and we get crazy. And then let's say a year later, we look in the mirror and we're like, I'm going to do that again. So we're just like all over the place. Now, you
Yeah.
said don't become a dick in doing it, and just start talking about it. Are there additional practical things that you would say to do versus just being the pendulum swinging so much? Because we're talking about lifestyle changes, right? And
Yep.
that's harder because you're actually changing habits. You're not just committing to a habit for 40 days or 75 days or whatever. So what
Yep.
are your thoughts? How do you coach people through that?
Yeah, I'll give you some practical examples, but first, practical insights. First of all, you get clear on the changes you want to make. First, the results, and then also the process. I want my life to be like X. Here's what I'm going to do to try and get my life more like X. So, and I've done all the things. I just finished a round of 75 hard. So I
Nice.
know. I think there's value in all that stuff.
Yeah.
75 hard was another thing where I tried it 3 times unsuccessfully before this last time number 4. I never made it past day 41. 3 times, day 41 is when I screwed it up, but this last time I made it. So that was great. So you try those things, but the pursuit is not 75 hard or weight loss. The pursuit is I want my life to look like this. I always say I want a life of passion and adventure. I want to be strong. I want to be the person who has reserves that I can share with others. I want to work everybody else under the table because I really enjoy working. Like, I'm healthiest. I don't, I have always wrestled with depression, and I know the best antidote for depression is activity. So people all the time say you got to slow down, don't work too much. You got to do this and you got to do that. Hey man, like, I've figured out how I'm healthiest. And so I'm going to do the Dave McDonald game plan that I learned about through the School of Hard Knocks. And I'm going to keep cultivating the life that God has entrusted into my care. And what works for me is probably not going to work for everybody else, but you're welcome to come along on the journey if you like. So you get clear on what you want, you get clear on what you're going to do to try and get there. And then you invite people along. And here's two great examples. One is 75 hard. I told my kids, I said, I've been working out a lot. I was powerlifting a lot, but powerlifters aren't typically lean. And so I noticed I was getting really strong and I was happy about my gains in the gym. But I thought, I'm worried about the health effects of carrying so much extra weight. I'm worried about heart disease. I'm worried about liver failure. I just got to get trimmed down to a leaner fighting weight. I don't feel bad about the way I look. I'm not going to hate on myself. I think this is the weight that I want to be so that I can still be strong, because that's the most important thing to me. But I can also be a little more, speedy. So then I didn't make them do 75 hard with me. I didn't challenge them for it. I didn't put any pressure on them to also diet or also do 2-a-day workouts. I didn't ask them to journal with me. I didn't ask them to read the 10 minutes a day. I just said, this is what I'm doing. And then they would ask me about it periodically, and then they would comment on my progress periodically. And it's just healthy. It's just normal. I'm doing my thing. I'm inviting them to participate at their leisure and pleasure. This time around, they elected not to because they have so many other things going on. And that's a healthy way to do it. And younger me, you forced them to do what I was doing, thinking, well, this is how I train them. We do it with.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't. You don't schedule someone else's transformation.
Ooh.
You invite people to be a part of your life at whatever level they're comfortable. And
That's
invitation,
really powerful.
yeah, the invitation is what makes it meaningful. Here's another example that's maybe more significant. I just was reminded about this week. I kind of forgot about it truthfully, but in 2017, I did the Murph 38 days in a row. I did it every day from Memorial Day to the 4th of July
Dang.
in honor of living veterans. So every day I would pray for a veteran, and while I was doing the Murph, I'd say, today's Murph is dedicated to my good friend Mitch, who's, served in Afghanistan and then later on with the CIA. And so I'd make a little post and pray for Mitch and post Mitch's picture. And then when I would do the Murph, while I'm running, and I'd say, Lord, I just ask that your grace would be all over Mitch and let him know how important he is to me. And then the next day, Kyle, and then the next day, Jim. And so 38 days. And so every day I would invite people to do the Murph with me, because I was posting about it. And, it's a pretty grueling workout. Doing it that
Yeah.
many times in a row, you really start to suffer. But I would say, I'm always looking for people to join me. If you want to do the Murph with me, come do it. So my kids did it with me a bunch of times, probably 10 times,
Wow.
which was cool, and they'd done the Murph before because we would always do it on Memorial Day. But they would do it or not at their leisure. And so they have a share in this really meaningful experience, and they can talk to the people for whom they prayed. I mean, we still talk about the people that they prayed for. It's just fun. It's fun.
That's
It's
cool.
healthy. And so I go, like, my kids have the attitude that we needed to do the Murph today, they'd go, oh crap. All right. Like, that's amazing. The Murph sucks. And so I got these two kids that they could do it, and it wouldn't be a life wrecking setback for them. That's amazing. If they can do that, they can do anything. And they got that way because they received an invitation and they decided to accept that invitation when they were ready. And in that case, they were ready multiple times, but not every time. And that's awesome.
Yeah. So I would say that that's a shift that I'm making right now. Is I think a lot of times my invitations are actually more manipulation or deep desire for somebody to do what it is I want them to do with me, which is
Yeah.
interesting because I think it comes back to it comes back to judgment, right? It's almost like I'm trying to justify my own decision to do, say I chose 75 hard or Murph. And so
Yeah.
it's like, I need everybody else around me to do it to justify this decision I made. But if I were to give an invitation to my wife or kids to participate in something, and they know, here's the thing, do they know that I love them and am okay whether they do it or not? That is an
Yeah.
authentic place to be as a father. So that's really powerful. Yeah, I love it. The invitation.
Yeah. Yeah,
So, my
you can't.
friend,
I mean,
we're coming to the end here. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say you can't make
No, go
anybody do
ahead.
anything. And if the more you force them, all you're cultivating is resentment. You're not cultivating change or transformation. Like if you got a fat teenage kid and you're like,
Mm,
man, I'm going to do 75 hard with my fat kid so that my fat kid loses weight and feels great about themselves, and I'm showing them the way of transformation. No, you're not. They know what's going on. They know
mm,
you think they're fat. They feel ashamed. Doesn't matter how much time you spend with them.
wow.
Your disapproval is coming through loud and clear. So if
Yeah.
you really care about your kid and you know what they're doing, you could have an honest conversation about it. Say, I'm really concerned about this. I love you. The way you look doesn't matter to me, but I'm worried about your health. How can I support you? Are you worried about it? You could have those conversations. You could also just go, hey, what are the things in me that are not healthy, and what am I doing to take care of those? Because if I can model and embody
Yes.
ongoing transformation, that preaches.
Mm, yes. Yes. Ah, dude, so good. All right, my friend, last question for you. It's a legacy question. So, say 30 years from now, you are peering into the homes of your children. They may be married, they may have kids. What is it that you see playing out in those homes that puts a smile on your face, a tear in your eye, going, okay, I showed up for them. I showed up in my role as a father. What do you see in those homes?
Oh, just love, just
Hmm.
affection and tenderness, and lots of hugging and laughter and big smiles and raucous, joyous roars, peals of enjoyment, and everybody just enjoying each other for who they are and how they are. But yeah, love, 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 love,
Hmm.
love, love. I can know all mysteries, man. I can have all my theology right. I can see God and understand the most profound depths of the universe. But if I don't have love, it's a gong show.
Hmm. Beautiful. David, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your life. Thank you for the way that you have continued to be the man who is growing and pursuing growth. And I did 75 hard 4 times and failed 3 times, and I keep going and I'm sharing it. That's not what defines you, right? It's the journey that defines you. And I think that that's the beauty that men need to step into is being vulnerable, open, authentic, and grow through that. It's like, we're
Yeah,
not looking for perfection, people. We're looking for people willing to go on the journey. And so thank you
yeah.
for being one of those men and for sharing that. And I look forward to continued conversations with you, learning and growing from the work that you've done. So thank you. Where can people learn more about the program that you have if they want to send their pastor, their church, leadership, etc.?
Yeah, Fossores.com, Fossores.com. And the Fossorians were a group of early Christian pastors that were grave diggers and artists. So that's our namesake. So Fossores.com. And then you and I are working on a certification for somatic spirituality. So if you want to know more about the spirituality of the body, you can also find out about that at Fossores.com or at holyalive.com, which is also my
Okay,
Instagram.
so as we end this right now, I just got to say, so when David and I connected, he told me about these articles he's writing. I'm holding one in my hands right now called Holy Alive about, spirituality and fitness. And there's 8 articles, I believe, and I had my assistant get me 6 of them. I was getting on a flight from Kona to mainland. And bro, I crushed all 6 of them in one flight, like whatever that took me 3.5 hours. I'm like eating this stuff up, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I'm going to get that certification now, you guys. So like this idea of growth, the things that we're talking about, connecting our bodies and our faith is remarkable. So I'm really excited to continue these conversations with David and all that he has to offer. So I'd highly recommend going and grabbing those articles. They are, when you read them, it's like clear that there's 30 years worth of wrestle struggle thinking through these concepts. It's not just something you're like, I'm going to write an article this week and let me
Yeah.
sit down and do this. Like, that ain't happening. You ain't Googling all that. You have to do the work to be able to share what you're sharing. So dude, massive growth for me personally. So thank you for that.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you.
Love it, dude. All right, brother. Thank you. Until next time. There you have it, my friends. Another incredible conversation. I didn't want it to end. Things that really stuck out are this idea around judgment and love. And if you love, there will be suffering. So if you're experiencing suffering, then you're doing something right. That's part of life. The other thing that really stuck out to me, guys, is this idea around if you want to love and lead your family well, you have to tend to your own spirit. You have to tend to yourself. And this reminded me of this statement. Like, many of us have trauma in our life. And if we have trauma, there's ways that we show up in our habits and in the way we speak. And if we do not work on ourselves and work to transform that trauma, we will transfer it. Okay, so I know it's easy to think like, I don't need to work on this. I'm fine. I can cope with life. But what about your kids? Do you want your kids coping with life the same way that you're coping with life? If you do not transform it in yourself, you will transfer it to them. And I know for myself, I don't want to do that. And I know that you don't want that for your kids either. All right, dudes, if this is beneficial and helpful and you're learning and you're growing and you're seeing the truth of who you are as a father, please write a review. It helps spread the word that fatherhood matters. Please share this with somebody. Shoot a text. Hey, yo, I heard this. I think you're a great dad, and I think that you'd love this conversation. Again, this isn't about me trying to have more influence. Like, I do this because I love it. And if no one listened, I learned so much the last hour. Like, my family's gaining from this, but the reality is, if you and I are the only dad showing up, like, we need good spouses for our kids one day. So you and I gotta, lead the movement of letting other dads know that they matter and the way they show up matters. So you got to share this stuff or find something to share and encourage dads around you. All right. Thank you to all you dads out there listening to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast. What you do matters. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. That's who your kids, your spouse, and the community needs. They need you, bro. This is your guide, Ned Shout. Together, let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact and create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. I look forward to hanging out with you next time.